believe we have 5 minutes as well.
Okay, great. Reverend Brooks?
Good morning. Good morning.
Hey, I'm so sad that you're not going to be here because I thought I was going to sneak you up on the stage with me.
Wait a minute. It's today, right?
Yeah.
Santita, I get in at noon.
You coming back in?
I get in at noon today. I was misunderstanding. I thought your thing was Saturday.
Okay.
Yeah, so I get in at noon. So as soon as I get in at noon, I'll find you and just come to where you are.
Well, no, what you need to do, because I'm not going to be down there yet. And did you were you able to send that?
I did.
Hold on, no, baby. I'm sorry. I'm trying to pull something else. Okay, then what we will do is work out, see what else they have on the stage, like an organ or something. Because I wanted you to do that. Because I just assumed because you were on his last album.
Yeah, I was, but I thought it was Saturday. No, it's tomorrow. I'm in town tomorrow.
Well, honey, look, your schedule is so full. I don't expect you to know it all, you know?
Well, I appreciate that, and I love you for that.
No, it's true. So I didn't make any presumptions. I just thought that you were going to be in. And I thought we were going to do a jazz set.
Right, okay.
That's what he and I were going to do.
I would never throw you under the bus. Normally, I tell you.
No, you never throw me under the bus. No. What I'm trying to tell, and I don't throw you under the bus either. What I was simply saying was this: he and I, when I do a lot of jazz work, I do it with him, right?
Okay.
And he is excellent. But
awesome.
so that's what we were going to do. And he said, the more I think about it, I think you need to do. We need to go back to church, which he is very able to do.
Right.
But what we're going to be doing Black and Blue, which is come Sunday, and doing the Mahalia version. And so I want you to be a part of that. Okay.
Well, yeah. Awesome.
So we'll figure out how to do that because it'll be a very short interlude. So let's figure that out without running over because I have a rehearsal with him this morning.
Okay. What time?
As soon as I get off the air.
Okay.
As soon as I get off the air. Because
let me. As soon as I land, I'm gonna text you landed, and then you can just let me know what you want me to do. Because if you want me to come to the rehearsal, I could do that too.
Okay. Well, we're not gonna rehearse forever and ever and ever. I think we're gonna do something. We might do something else a little bit later too. But I want to go over come Sunday. But absolutely.
I didn't understand.
Absolutely. Henry, can you turn up can you hear Pastor Brooks?
I can.
Okay, good. You always say that. Yes. I'm sorry.
No, you're all good. We have about 2 minutes. The Facebook sounds good to me from what I checked. And yeah, I can hear them well on this end as well.
Okay, what I need you to do is to turn up just ever so slightly. I can't, when I don't hear the radio, when I don't hear the station, I don't know if you're there or not, okay?
Better?
Go see the
just yes, something.
They have employer-provided health insurance. The non-union roofer may not have any safety protocols at their workplace. Their health,
2 minutes.
if it is offered to them, is taken out of their paycheck, and their wages will most likely be 20% less than the union roofer. A union represents and negotiates on behalf of their members to ensure fairness, a living wage, family health benefits, and a dignified retirement. And now, with the recent passage of the Workers' Rights Amendment, it is time for you to form a union at your workplace. Don't settle for less than you deserve. Say yes to unions.
Are you the parent of a 2 to 7-year-old? Listen closely.
1 minute.
Radio
Okay,
offer.
thank you.
By now, you've probably heard of ABC Mouse, the Parents' Choice Award-winning online learning program that's actually changing the lives of early learners
Okay,
everywhere.
if this is still going,
it has helped her
I need
so
you to
much.
put me on mute
Right now,
when the
we're
pastor's
offering
on,
a special
okay?
radio promo
Okay, we'll do.
for a month.
Thank you.
But you have to go to abcmouse.com/radio to claim your free month. That's abcmouse.com/radio.
Sponsored by Age of Learning.
Chicago's
Stand by.
Thank you.
WCPT 820, where facts matter.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. Getting a little bit of feedback, but we're going to work that out right now. It is June 22nd, Thursday, 2023. I'm Santita Jackson, coming to you from the nation's largest progressive talk radio station. And it is a joy to be with you today. I hope that you'll join me tonight in Millennium Park. They're going to honor one of the giants of music, indeed, the music that is indigenous to America, and one of the greatest figures in it, Ramsey Lewis, made his transition just a few months ago, but there will be a gathering tonight in which we will be celebrating his life, and I am going to be singing and opening it up. I'm so honored. I grew up next door to Mr. Ramsey Lewis and his and Mrs. Lewis, the mother of his 7 children, and she died some years ago, and he married Mrs. Jan Lewis. I'm sending love to her as well. But Mrs. Geraldine Lewis, I grew up with her, the mother of his 7 children. And so Bobby and Frayne and Kelly, who've really taken up the reins musically, are really pulling all this together. And their 2 other surviving siblings, Dawn and Denise, will not be there, and Kevin and Ramsey have gone on to glory. But we will all be there, and we hope that you'll be there tonight, starting at 6:30 in Millennium Park. It's going to be something really, really special. Donald Lawrence, his original trio, and so many people who've worked with Mr. Lewis down through the years. I'll be working with Miguel de la Serna, one of the leading figures in music here in Chicago and around the country. He's worked on Broadway, he's done so much work. And then we're going to pull Pastor Darius Brooks out of the audience. Pastor Brooks actually was one of Mr. Lewis's favorite artists, and he insisted upon having him on his last album, which was a gospel album, which his sons, Bobby and Frayne, produced. They're brilliant, brilliant musicians themselves. So tonight is going to be great. I am coming to you from WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, WCPT and AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Want to talk to you about Ocean Gate. We're finding out more and more as we're praying that these persons, that these brave souls have survived. We just don't know. We don't know what this knocking every 30 minutes means, but we do know that at least one high-ranking executive at Ocean Gate was fired because he sounded the alarm on what he saw were potentially catastrophic flaws in the machine. Now, the CEO of the company, who was down under with 4 other passengers, has said, well, I skirted the rules, and that's okay because, we made it and, we're here. Well, now they are there and no one can find them. When you get to the bottom of the ocean, it is completely dark, extremely cold. And we're just praying that these souls have made it and are making it. And so we'll see. It's a battle against time. But you know what they say, keep hope alive. That's what we're trying to do. We're going to be talking about home ownership with David Hochberg today. Is this a good time to own home? Why are women lagging behind in home ownership numbers? And what can you do to hold on to your home if you might be on the verge of losing it? Just talking. And all the questions you have about home ownership, I want you to call me at 7:00 with Team Hochberg. And of course, talking about the economy with Dr. Max Wolf. We're going to have an interesting take today, looking at the Supreme Court for sale. Now we see Justice Alito's in it. They're all in it. Not everybody except Tanya Brown Jackson. And I'm sure these liberals on the court, because they're really trying to be judicious, but you don't know. Because they have their own rules and they can do whatever it is that they want to do. And who's going to overrule the Supreme Court? That's the highest court in the land. Oh, Got a lot to talk about on the Santita Jackson Show. And whatever is the big news show of the news story of the day, I want you to start calling me at 773-763-9278. I want to hear your thoughts about what is going on today. Call me at 773-763-9278. What do you think about this submersible, this submersible that is underwater? And then you find out now that there were questions raised, there were serious doubts raised about the safety of this vessel. Wow. And that starts the headlines today. The search for a missing submersible with 5 people on board continues as the amount of remaining oxygen becomes a vital issue, experts say. The sub, known as Titan, begins each trip to explore the wreckage of the Titanic with an estimated 96 hours of life support and has been missing since Sunday morning, making this morning today a crucial target for finding the vessel and those on board. Banging noises detected on Tuesday and Wednesday from beneath the sea's surface in the massive search area, which has doubled. It's twice the size of Connecticut, at least from the aerial view. It's provided hope for the survivors. We do hope that they will survive. Yesterday, everybody, what a day in the House of Representatives. They voted to censure Congressman Adam Schiff, who is a leading candidate for the U.S. Senate in California. He's a key lawmaker in Democrats' congressional investigations into former President Donald Trump. The resolution accuses him of misleading the American people while pursuing the congressional investigation into Russia and the Trump campaign as then chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, and for actions he took leading up to the former president's first impeachment. Indian Prime Minister Modi, leader of the world's most populous nation, will meet with President Joe Biden today during a state visit to Washington as part of a trip that is expected to further boost defense, trade, and technology ties and celebrate, quote, the warm bonds of family and friendship, close quote, that link the two countries. He was in New York on Wednesday, where he led celebrations for the International Day of Yoga at the United Nations. Later today, he will address Congress. The Supreme Court, the Senate Judiciary Committee will consider a bill on Supreme Court ethics following a ProPublica report that Justice Samuel Alito did not disclose a luxury 2008 trip in which a hedge fund billionaire flew him on a private jet. Now, mind you, this private hedge fund billionaire had cases that were going to be reviewed by the court. You cannot make this stuff up, everybody. They have no rules that they have to follow. They judge themselves, and they let themselves off. So those are some of the headlines in Chicago. It's going to be in the high 70s today. It might reach 80 degrees, mostly sunny. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 91 degrees, mostly sunny. Major League Baseball, the Twins 5, the Red Sox 4, the Rangers 6, the Sox 3, Cubs 8, the Pirates 3, and guess what? Chicago won over Portland in soccer 2-1. And those are the headlines on the Santita Jackson Show. Pastor Darius Brooks, how can we worship with you on Sunday? And I know I'm pushing today, but we are running. Talk to me about how we can get this food that you are giving out by the hundreds of bags every week. And how can we worship with you on Sunday before you get into the good news?
Santita's Grace Central Church, 10216 South Kitchener Street, Westchester, Illinois, right off of 290 in Manheim, every Tuesday from 5 till 7 and every Wednesday from noon till 8. We're still excited about giving food. Anybody will not be turned down. No one will be turned down. And we give $200 to $300 worth of food every Tuesday from 5 till 7. And then on Wednesdays for seniors from noon till 2. Grace Central Church, 10216 South Kitchener Street, Westchester, Illinois. If you get lost, just Google Darius Brooks or go to my name, and my church is connected to that, or gracecentral.net. Santita, I'm excited. I heard you say cases reviewed by the court of how things are really getting done or needs to be done from an honest perspective. God deals with cases reviewed by his word. So whenever life doesn't make sense, that's why I share with Grace Central the word of God, in the word of God from Genesis to Revelations, and everything is in there you need from to murder, Santita, every experience in life, from a son to a father to a mother to a daughter, or to generational situations. Everything you need is in the Word of God, from love stories to murders. Those are examples of how these people dealt with things, and they reminding us, even in 2022, to those who read and study, hey, you guys, ain't nothing changed about a lot of stuff. It's just operating in principles that when you really love God and want direction for your life, not a religious place at all, Santita, but if this God thing is real, for real, and it's still the number one selling book in the world, the Bible, something got to be true about this book. I was sharing with them on Sunday, you can't have Christ. You got to be in Christ. It's like a relationship. Santita, you can't be married talking about, I have my husband and ain't in it. You work every day, don't spend no quality time. And the same thing with children. People of God, Philippians 2:16 says, holding fast to the word of life. That's what God calls the Bible, the scriptures. He don't call it the Bible or scriptures. He says to the word of life, so that in the day of Christ, or I may be proud that I did not run in vain or labor in vain. Santita, I'm about to run up in this place this morning. When things get complicated with imaginary sayings that people say, and even sometimes the ones often we say to ourselves, sometimes, Santita, we don't believe what we don't operate in what we believe. We know some people are what they are, and we just gonna give them a chance anyway. Oh my goodness, you just blessed me about your word about Santita. A liar is a liar. You can give him a chance all you want, but the word of God says he judges the thoughts and the intent of a heart. I'm speaking to somebody this morning with an imaginary saying, say, and even sometimes ourselves, popular sayings, politically correct things for the culture we're in. Some thoughts you do not have to be accepted in. Some thoughts you do not have to move or shake. So a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. And so sometimes we got to make sure that our thought patterns are clear, not necessarily right, wrong, good or bad, Santita. We got to make sure they are clear. And for those who seem to be operating in these crazy times, and we make them epic moments in our lives of, Lord Jesus, this is happening, what is going on here? These things in life are protected by the life in Christ, or by operating in and out of the Word of God. These things that happen in life, Santita, they are protected by a life in Christ. Ask me how I know. Buried a mother, buried a father, two sisters in the same year. My youngest brother 4 months ago, my niece just 30 days ago. Santita, ask me how I know the things in life are protected by a life in Christ. For those who don't have a natural father, he's a father when you're fatherless. He's a mother when you're motherless. And you'll never see them on this side of heaven. I want to close with this, Santita, because I'm excited. As a believer, it's not about the things that happens in life. It's more about how they hurt, how they can make one feel really bad, how we can look at things or situations and feel just terrible, lost and alone, a place where there's no protection. Santita, I came with some good news today. There's a Father of fathers, there's a King of kings, and there's a Lord of lords. And he says, if any man come unto me, I will be there for the rest of his days. Lord, I'll be with you always to the end of the earth. And Santita, God's word is for direction and protection more than anything. Whoever's under my voice, if you're not winning on your own terms, that's natural. But if you ever want to be healed and you want to see clear and you want to allow your steps to be ordered by the Lord, it's the King of Kings. It's the Lord of Lords. And I was thinking, you sort of make me cry this morning because I was thinking about somebody told me, I'm so glad Trump is doing the things he does. Let me tell you something. This is not about Trump. It's not about the White House, the Black House. It's about God being a person, keeping his word. Santita, God doesn't let faithfulness go unrewarded. And God punishes the wicked. I'm included in this too. Wickedness are ill ambitions, and it doesn't matter who it is. He will make sure things are taken care of. To the believer, stay the course. If you trust him with all your heart, stay the course. and lean not to your own understanding. And in all your ways, WAYS, and he meant this literally, mentally, physically, emotionally, financially, spiritually, socially, culturally, verbally, sexually, professionally, personally, in all your ways, just talk to him and he will direct your path.
Let me ask you this. God bless you. How do you deal with grief? Just if you could help us, because you have you've had a lot of people. I'm not going to say you've lost a lot of people. A lot of people have passed through your life, because in the Black tradition, we don't say that people have died. We say they've passed. They've passed through this world back into the next, back into eternity. That having been said, grief is a real thing, Pastor Brooks. It's a very real thing. I have lost 4 of my closest friends over the past 2 years. And I've shed very few tears. Very few tears. I mean, like once cried maybe one time per person. And then suddenly the grief has hit me, and it's been a slow thing. And I guess I've also been trained a particular way, because I was always holding grief off in case something happened to my dad. That's how I grew up, because the people in my group lost their fathers when they were very young. Their fathers were assassinated. But real. It is real. How do you deal with it? I mean, I understand scripture, but there are times you can't get to that Bible. It's just like,
watch this. Ooh, I'm so glad.
I'm
so glad you said that.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, though, because it's important, which is why you just said something that was crazy, amazing, but one needs to understand it. When I can't get to the Bible, Santita.
Wait a minute, hold on. And I'm speaking to people in this audience. Many people in the audience are agnostic, or they're atheist. Right. And you know what? I really appreciate that, because we all have a body of experiences that have shaped our lives. And so some of us, we are grounded in faith. Some of us are like, we question. Some of us are like, no, I don't believe in God. And you know what? I appreciate that. I do. I mean, I don't have to agree with it. I'm like, I respect that.
I'm very sensitive to those people. Just FYI, those are on here. I'm very sensitive to those people. My truth and their truth and your truth is most important in our individual lives. Santita, please comprehend and interpret this word of the season. Those who are unbelievers, there's 3 people. There's non-believers, there's unbelievers, and they're believers. The non-believers are those who do not believe in God. And one of the greatest gifts God is this. You said it can't get to the Bible. This is why it's important that your show is here. People, God is going to make sure that everybody who comes in this world or leave this world know that it's Him. Listen, hear me. And all of this is in the Word of God, rightly divided. The ignorance of people saying that men wrote the Bible and all this. They won't study. You cannot listen to what somebody else say. Santita, I cannot get into Santita Jackson listening to what somebody told me about you. Somebody may not like you. And for me to listen to somebody else telling me something about my friend Santita Jackson, that ain't going to happen. So I'm into Santita Jackson. She's my friend. People of God, get into something. Don't just have it or hear what somebody else say. Watch this. You said, you talk about grief first. Well, in the Word of God says that He gives us a choice. And see, I'm going to blow you away. One of the greatest gifts God's ever given us is a gift of choice. We could choose what we want, but we can't choose the consequences of our choices. Watch this. Being an atheist is a choice, because if you want to be a believer, you will be a believer. This is in the Word of God. So this is why understanding and all by getting understanding. Grief is a situation. Watch this. It's a part of life. Grief is, you put your seatbelt on, Santita. Grief is what makes life more meaningful. And it's all God. He orchestrates events to move us in His will. Everybody that belongs to God, go back to God. He got this thing so scripted, it's crazy amazing. But you got to get into the Word to understand, and the more you do, it's like, wow, I never looked at it like that. Santita, like the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Our definition of fear is being afraid. His definition of fear, rightly dividing it and understanding God's language, is whole high esteem my word, so I can show you in the flesh how to operate in the spiritual. Santita, the word of God says the word becomes flesh and dwells among men. What does that mean? You start studying, getting into this thing. Watch this. Absent from the body means to be present with the Lord. Santita, you and I know just in the natural, let alone spiritual, Lord, this world is so crazy. It makes you want to get up out of here. Well, the word of God says that's going to happen, but let me show you how to live down there in the earth. Let me show you how to live in the world. Let me show you how to deal with atheists. Let me show you how to deal with everybody. Santita, it's a good cop. It's a bad cop. It's a good pastor. It's a bad pastor. It's a good doctor. It's a bad doctor. You got some doctors who really want you healthy. They'll tell you eat right. You got some doctors who won't tell you nothing. Just take this, get your medicine. Right now around the country, the most biggest things are happening are lawsuits in hospitals by young, smart doctors coming in here doing things that they think will work when the experienced doctors are saving lives, because I didn't seen this before. Santita, grief is things that happens in life as people losing the mother, father. That's why I put my situation in there. I got a family now. I got a wife. I got a daughter. My daughter just texted me yesterday, Daddy, I love you. Thank you so much. I'll pay attention to everything you're doing. Santita, in the word of God, it tells me to spend time with my daughter. I ain't supposed to be no pastor to the degree that my family suffers. The word of God said, how can you pastor a church and your family suffer? People of God, every answer we need is in the word of God, but we got to choose, is this what we want to do, or do we want to chase the world? Santita, your soul is purpose. Let me tell you something. One of these days, and hear me when I tell you, and you're going to get a testimony from one of these days, somebody who's an atheist or somebody going to say, can I call you off the show? You know, sometimes I've been listening. What do you think about this? What do you think about this? All things work together for the good to them who love the Lord. Whoever you are grieving, these are the moments that you got to literally let it go. I had to let my mother's grief go. I want to say this so bad with the Cook County Clerk of Illinois. She had me pray and go down to the Illinois Cook County Court. And I went down and I told them, don't you put another person's name on that tree of the ones you think about. Santita, I gave them 2 illustrations and I'm going to let you go. Santita, in the natural, have anybody ever disturbed you from your sleep? In the natural, they disturbed you and they woke you up. Santita, they woke you up from your rest. You were tired. Watch this. It hurts. They didn't really care about if you had to get up in the morning. Santita, death is a spiritual death. And when you bother somebody when they spiritually dead, you're disturbing their rest. Believers don't rest in peace. They rest from their labor.
Pastor Darius Brooks, everybody. Sending you so much love. Can't wait to see you tonight. God bless you, everybody. Let's talk about what's happening with that submersible. Thank you for that word, Pastor Brooks. What's happening with the Titan that is in the bottom of the ocean? We don't know where it is. But we do know that the reports are coming out that serious questions were raised about the safety of this vessel. And one of the persons who raised the question was an executive who was fired. He's now suing Ocean Gate. Let's talk about it on the Santita Jackson Show. Back in a minute.
This is Chicago's Progressive Talk, 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and online at WCPT820.com, where facts matter.
This is Ron Whittingham, and I'm co-owner of Megan Financial, an independent retirement and financial services firm here in Chicago. We've built our business on playing the long game, teaching financial literacy to our clients to prepare them for a great future and a dignified retirement. Investments, pensions, 401ks, they're all pretty complicated. We make sure that you understand it all. Give us a call at 708-444-1090. We're Megan Financial, and we're your partners in a happy retirement. Or visit us at megent.com.
Securities and advisory services offered through Cetera Advisors LLC, member of FINRA SIPC, a broker-dealer and a registered investment advisor. Cetera is under separate ownership from any other named entity. The views depicted in this broadcast are general in nature and provided for informational use only. The views are not necessarily those of Cetera Advisors LLC. They should not be considered as specific investment or tax advice. All information is believed to be from reliable sources. However, we make no representation as to its completeness or accuracy. Keep in mind that investing involves risk, including loss of principal. Investment decisions should be based upon an individual's own goal, time horizon, and tolerance for risk. Consult your investment or tax professional regarding your unique situation.
When you leave the office, catch up on what you missed on the way home with Patty Vasquez. Weekday afternoons from 5 to 7.
Because we have so much to talk about every day.
Driving.
Hi, Miss Jackson.
Patty Vasquez.
We have Attorney C.K. Hoffler and Attorney Sanat ready to go, and I'm about to call up Dr. Knighton.
No, she doesn't belong in the
Chicago's
segment. Tell her I'm going to have to
Progressive
call her
Talk.
back after the show because we had to move on to another segment.
Okay, we'll do.
Just tell her to call her.
PT 820.
All right,
When we
perfect.
get off the
Chicago
air.
weather
Okay?
update.
Sounds good.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. We'll see sunny skies here
Hello?
for today with a high in the upper 80s.
CK?
Northeast around 5 to 15 miles per hour.
Good morning, Santita. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Tonight,
You have those
partly
articles that I sent you,
64.
yes?
By Friday, sunshine high around
Yeah,
88 degrees.
I just
Saturday,
was reading through them.
skies and sun high
Okay, very good.
101. Sunday, a chance for showers
Attorney
and
Sanat, my
thunderstorms. Partial
caller,
sunshine
how are
high
you?
around 89.
Hello, good morning, Santita. Good morning, CK.
Currently,
Good morning.
This is Ron Whittingham, and I'm
Okay.
co-owner of Megan
You
Financial,
guys,
an
I am
independent
sorry.
retirement
Sorry.
and financial
A
services
lot of
firm
things this
here in Chicago.
morning.
We've built our business on playing the long game, teaching financial
2 minutes.
clients to prepare them
Okay,
for a
thank
great
you.
future and a dignified retirement.
You all can
Investments,
speak to each other.
pensions,
I am
401ks, they're all pretty complicated.
just a couple
We
of
make
things
sure that you
myself.
understand it all. Give us a call at 708-444-1090. We're Megan Financial, and we're your partners in a happy retirement. Or visit us at megent.com.
Securities and advisory services offered through Cetera Advisors LLC, member of FINRA SIPC, a broker-dealer and a registered investment advisor. Shares under separate ownership from any other named entity. The views depicted in this broadcast are general in nature and provided for informational use only. The views are not necessarily those of Advisor LLC. They should not be considered as specific investment or tax advice. All information is believed to be from reliable sources. However, we make no representation as to its completeness or accuracy. Keep in mind that investing involves risk, including loss of principal. Investment decisions should be based upon an individual's own goal, time horizon, and tolerance for risk. Consult your investment and/or tax professional regarding your unique situation.
Next up, straight talk from Doug. Ever notice that saying no offense is offensive? Like, no offense, but you're overpaying for your wireless. See? Offensive.
That's the Straight Talk talking. Get unlimited plans as low as $35 a month from Straight Talk on America's most reliable 5G network. Available at Walmart and Walmart.com. On the $35 plan, first 10 gigabytes data at high speed, then 2G speeds. Refer to the latest terms at straighttalk.com. Based on most first place rankings, root metrics, second half 2022 assessments of 125 metros. Experiences vary.
Back in 30.
Okay, thank you.
You took the first step and quit smoking, but even former smokers may still be at risk for lung cancer. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know about a new low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early. It takes only 60 seconds and could save your life. You took the first step, now take the next. Visit SaveByTheScan.org for a simple quiz to see if you're eligible and talk to your doctor about screening. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
Stand by.
Progressive Talk, WCPT 820, where facts matter.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. Hope to see you tonight at the Ramsey Lewis Tribute. There's so many people will be there. I'll be posting it on my social media. It's going to be a wonderful, wonderful experience. I'm going to be singing there. I'm honored to have been asked to open this program, but you're going to have the Ramsey Lewis Trio of different configurations of it. Donald Lawrence will be there. Darius Brooks will be there. Miguel de la Serna, who will be accompanying me. He's one of the top musicians in the country, quite frankly, in the whole industry. We're very, very excited to be there to pay tribute to this giant of music in the field of jazz. His radio shows were always so wonderful, and I had the privilege of growing up next door to him. Those of us who grew up in Chicago remember every Christmas, Lee Phillips, that wonderful talk show that we had on CBS, used to go to his house. He and his wife Jerry had 7 kids. Oh my gosh, 7. Beautiful home. And it was just wonderful because he would play and then you'd see his children, and it was just wonderful. And it'll be great to be with them all tonight. It will be a family reunion. Everybody, we are all concerned about what's happening in the bottom of the ocean. We're looking for the Titan. It's a small commercial submarine that went missing in the North Atlantic Ocean on Sunday. 96 hours of oxygen or life-saving supports on board. We hear clanging every 30 minutes, but we don't know what that is. Now, we are hoping against hope, keeping hope alive, that these are people banging. But remember, think about this. As I've been looking at different news reports, The people who are there, they're in the ocean floor, we assume. The ocean floor is completely dark, pitch black. You can see nothing. It is freezing cold, frigid. So we don't know if they're warm enough, if they're freezing. We don't know. We do know that it is best for them not to speak because it's best for them not to light a match. Not only are they in a combustible cabin, but you really don't want to take up any oxygen. We use oxygen for everything. For everything. It seems the same pressure that you feel when you go into space is the same pressure you feel when you go below to the depths of the ocean. But now we find out something else. We find out that there is a David Lockridge, an executive, who expressed profound doubt about the safety of this submarine. Indeed, he said, we have potentially catastrophic flaws in the structure of this submarine. And the louder he proclaimed his doubts, and other people expressed the doubts, because this submarine is also not certified by the board that needs to certify such objects. It's not certified to go down 12,000 feet plus. It's just not. But he was fired, and he's suing OceanGate, the company that owns the Titan submarine. He's suing them now because he said, you fired me, and you fired me for reasons that were not right. So let's talk about this, because now the CEO who said that, yeah, we did skirt the rules. He's down there with these 4 other persons. He said, yeah, we skirted the rules. You see a lot of interviews with him. He said, yeah, but at least we got this vessel down and we're moving. But a lot of things that could have been done to ensure, to make the vessel safer, well, they were not done. So, I had to bring on the former president of the National Bar Association, the largest and oldest Black bar association in the world, and of course, legal analyst on Court TV and chair of Rainbow Push, attorney C.K. Hoffler, and attorney Anastasia Sanat, brilliant lawyer. And I said, culpability. I mean, when we hear about this now, and these lawsuits go back several years, quite frankly. I mean, he started suing them in 2018. Let me start with you, CK, and of course we want to hear from attorney Sanat. But I mean, now we're hearing something else. It makes you look at the story and go, wait a minute, what happened here, CK? I mean, what happened?
Well, good morning, Santita. What happened was, in terms of the lawsuit, let me just say this. This is not uncommon. I actually had a lawsuit very similar to this, where when people operate in a very, very sensitive position where they're dealing with confidential information and technology, and when there's a problem that happens, and for some reason or another they violate the confidentiality, or they are whistleblowers, whether they are technically whistleblowers or someone who is just expressing concerns about safety and health and the technological security, oftentimes they are terminated. They are retaliated against because, of course, if it gets out, or someone who's a highly regarded engineer is saying, I told you all there was a problem, and when I told you it was a problem, you all put profits before people, and as opposed to fixing the problem, you went ahead with it, and now people have died. So he expressed his concerns in 2018, but they sued him, and he counterclaimed, meaning he sued them too. And the same litigation, it's my understanding that they settled those claims. But, once you file a lawsuit, it's a matter of public record. The settlement may not be a matter of public record. I'm sure that's confidential. But the reason why it's surfacing now is because some of the concerns that he raised are, in fact, on point and could provide some context for the tragedy that we're seeing right now. So from a legal standpoint, Santita, the litigation just sheds some light and puts into context this tragedy. But there is going to be, no matter what, let's assume the best, and let's assume that we have survivors, and miraculously it all works out. And there will still be litigation for gross negligence, perhaps even criminal negligence, but on the civil side, at a minimum, gross negligence, because I would bet, especially in looking at some of the underlying litigation between this engineer and the company, that they knew of some of this. They knew about the safety concerns. They knew that there were some dangers associated with it. but they went forward anyway. Now, understand this, you're a passenger.
He said potentially catastrophic.
Well, and this is as catastrophic as you can get. But let me just tell you what you do when you're a passenger. And it's no different than when you're about to go into surgery, Santita. You know how you sign waivers. You sign a waiver that if of all these different things, because, you know, medicine is not an exact science, et cetera, et cetera. But it doesn't mean you're waiving your rights. Similarly, waiving your rights in the event of gross negligence or something that was reasonably foreseeable and intentional, all that kind of stuff. Well, in this instance, I'm very certain that those passengers they signed waivers, because this is a very, very speculative venture at best. But based on some of the evidence that is coming out, information is coming out, they probably are going to have a viable, their families, if they're not survivors, and I pray that they do survive. But even if they survive, they will have a viable case, because even though they're surviving, they are there in that space, in that capsule, knowing that something is wrong, knowing they have limited oxygen. That is traumatic in and of itself. Some people don't even survive that experience. And so these people who have paid a ton of money for this experience to see the remains of the Titanic, I pass no judgment. I think you should live your best life and pay all the money you want to experience that. They did not reasonably foresee this, and that's where the litigation is going to happen, even if they survive. But it's also shedding light on the frailty. You know, when we have these, when we have these missions to the moon, when people go to the moon, you know, lay people or people who just want to have that experience. You know, Jeff Bezos and all them, you know, all of those trips to the moon. And if something happens and goes terribly wrong, we know there's going to be litigation. And in my impression, of course, self-serving, I'm a trial lawyer, there should be litigation. By the way, I'm a plaintiff's trial lawyer. So there should be litigation if there is negligence or gross negligence.
Well,
that's what the
well, you know, I'm trying to figure this out, Anastasia, because, you know, they told this group of 5, okay, these are some of the risks. Now here you spent $200,000+. You're about to go under. You're not listening to all of that. You've already, you know, okay, listen, can we start this, please? Okay. You're not hearing that. I mean, I tell you what would have given me pause if I had known, if I'm adventurous in that way, which I'm not, but I'm not judging anyone, because some people are into that. You know, there's a group called the Thrill Seekers, and I'm fully aboard with you doing you and doing what you want to do. My question is, you know, do they really know the risk? And if they had known about this lawsuit, and there are several lawsuits, you know, charging this company with not building a vessel that is as safe as it could be. It's not been tested. It's not been certified. Do you think that people would have gone down? Attorney Sinat?
Well, of course they would have gone down, because they wanted the experience, just like going in the moon. You know that it can explode at any time. If you're going into a submersible, this vessel that they went in, 5 people in it, including someone's son is there, and you're going 12,500 feet, which is where the Titanic is located. You're going 900 miles outside of Newfoundland, and you're going into that experience. The problem that I want to direct both of your attention to, that I see, is what Congress has done, which is not to protect whistleblowers. They have not gone far enough to protect whistleblowers like this David Lockridge. I think had they done further. So back in 2002, and I'm sure CK can remember this, back in 2002, there was a scandal between Enron and WorldCom, right? So Congress went ahead and passed the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, which they call the SOX, right? And it basically extended protections of the whistleblower laws that were in existence for federal employees to these types of companies, right? And those employees at these private companies were also granted protections if they reported wrongdoing, which the government would basically hope at the time would prevent further misconduct, as we've seen with the Enron Corporation. The problem with that particular law, it was so limited to securities fraud, shareholder fraud, bank fraud, mail fraud, wire fraud, and a violation of any kind of SEC rule or regulation. In this situation, that obviously did not occur. When you are talking about federal employees, they have a little bit more leeway to speak about misconduct within their departments. They can talk about mismanagement, gross waste of funds, abuse of authority, or substantial and specific danger to public health and safety. In this situation, David Lockridge did the right thing. He went to another government agency called OSHA, right? That's how we talk about it. OSHA is the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. And within that, they have what they call a whistle protection program, in which they try to use other laws in order to try to protect people. But the extent that had to be used to protect this guy from retaliation, because anytime you complain about something like that, especially if you contact OSHA, you're engaging in what they call protected activity, right? You are protected by law that people cannot do what is called, either firing you, which is what happened in this case, or they can't take any other type of adverse action against you for engaging in that protected activity. That is literally the definition of retaliation. Now, an adverse action, like I said, this guy was fired.
But wait, hold on.
An adverse action.
If I can interrupt you right here, because I want us to be clear on who they fired. They fired the director of marine operations. And he delivered.
Yeah, he was there in order to provide safety and to do the report.
Right, in his job, he rendered a report on, I'm the director of marine operations. I'm in charge of getting you down there and ensuring the safety, ensuring the qualitative integrity of this vessel. He delivers the report. He said there are potentially catastrophic flaws. That's his terminology. That's the way he put it. And they fire him. I'm going to tell you, I know people wanted the experience, but attorneys did not. I'm just wondering, I got to tell you, well, you know what? I tell you what, if I would have heard that, and I would have been like, I'm out. I love y'all, but I'm not going to do this. Because that's what the law is supposed to do.
It's supposed to allow you to speak up without getting fired.
Okay.
It's supposed to allow you to speak up without being placed in a situation where you have to say, I'm out. I'm leaving. That's what the laws are supposed to do, is to protect you so you can protect others.
But you're saying the law does not do that.
He asked them. No, it's not doing that for him. What happened was he had asked them specifically in one of the articles that I read, he wanted to make sure that they pressure tested it, right? And he provided some corrective action recommendations, and they ignored him. And instead of doing what he had said, they went on an expedition in 2021, and they survived. They went on an expedition in 2022, and they survived. So they felt, well, let me go with 2023 and do it again. But this is the thing. They didn't add other additional security measures, even though it was able to survive. The metal and the form that they used in order to withstand the pressure of the ocean, they were able to obviously survive in 21 and in 22. But the problem is, now if there was anything else, for example, I mentioned this the other day, why didn't they have like a cord attached in order to follow it that was 13,000 feet, right? Why didn't they have some kind of sonar tracking system where they can, if the communication were to fail, that they would have something in order to do something? Why is it that there are 4 people that are not able to operate that vessel? I mean, when I looked at the video of the CEO that's there, he said it's supposed to be easy enough for a 16-year-old. But that's the truth. If it's that easy and that simple and you don't have communication with the main vessel, why wouldn't you immediately disperse your emergency opportunities? They didn't do that. All the emergency measures, they weren't done. So, I mean, what laws need to be in place? What does Congress need to do so that these companies with these billionaire CEOs do not keep running through, right, protections for the public? Because once you start opening up these types of opportunities to billionaires, you're putting all of them at risk. Even the young boy that's down there with his dad, you're putting him at risk. So I think that one of the problems that we need to do is to have Congress pass stricter laws that protect people in these private companies.
Attorney C.K. Hoffler, I mean, that's another way of looking at it. And I think that it's very important because when you look at this, David Lockridge, he's not some inconsequential person. No one ever is, but he's someone who's at the heart of the story. He's at the heart of the story. And I've got to tell you, C.K., I'm not a thrill seeker in this way, but I can only imagine a father and son are down there. If this man's wife and this son and his son's mother knew about this, she might have canceled that, CK. I know my mother would. My mother would have been like, oh, no, wait a minute, you all are being sued for what? Because I've seen my mother put my father in situations that absolutely horrified him because my mother's going to go right to the heart of it. You said what? Well, let me tell you what I saw you do or what I heard or what I read. But I mean, she goes right there. And I can only imagine, because the mother cub will take on any comers to save her child.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean, CK? An attorney Sanat. I mean, I don't have children. I get that.
Well, I do have children, and I can tell you though, when your children get to a certain age, they make up their own mind. They might do things that are ill-advised. But I'm not a thrill seeker in that way either. There would not be a scenario where I'd be paying that kind of money. But I'm not critical of it because I say people need to live their dreams, live their passion. When you do have unlimited resources and a lot of resources, you do have your attorneys, like I've been hired to do things like this, do research. And because you want to be well informed, especially if you are a CEO. Because they likely have key man insurance, all this kind of thing, because that's what happens. I mean, in the event that something bad happens. So likely they knew about the litigation. I think there's a likelihood in this, and in litigation that is going to ensue, that's going to be, they're going to say, they fully disclose this. I don't think it'll be ultimately successful in using this defense, but they fully disclose this information. Everybody's eyes were open. They knew that, there was still more, this was always evolving. But, thrill seekers aren't necessarily interested in, everything being tied up in a nice bow. They want the thrill. It's just like when you go skiing. If you go skiing in a very, very dangerous space where it's not well secured, the slopes are not tested, you're going in mountains where few people go. There are many people that go skiing under those circumstances, understanding the dangers, understanding they might hit a rock, because I'm a skier. So I know people do that kind of thing. But I will say what I feel is unacceptable and inexcusable is the negligence of the company if they could have done more. Pinto in the 70s knew that their vehicle was defective. They knew it. They had testing. They knew it. They made a decision to put profits over people. I keep on saying that because they made a calculation. They said, well, okay, we might have a few people, X number of people that we predict are going to die from this. Reasonably foreseeable. They're going to die because the cars will explode and people are going to die. It's going to cost us more money to fix these parts than the value of those persons' lives. So they did a cost-benefit analysis, and they decided not to go ahead and fix it. And people died, and they got sued, and then that put them out of business. But companies make cost-benefit analyses all the time. When this engineer pointed out certain safety concerns, there probably was a price tag attached to it. It's going to cost, some other person crunched the numbers and said, this is how much it's going to cost to fix it. That was probably a hefty price. The company made a decision, more than likely. And these are documents that are way buried in confidentiality. Somebody somewhere in a vault, on a ship, on a submarine, in the middle of something somewhere where no one can access. And I'm being facetious, but I'm actually speaking truth because I've had cases where documents just they existed, then they don't exist. Right, they existed, but then they don't exist. They don't exist, and then they exist. And usually, the people who uncovered these documents, as in the case I had many years ago, are assistants, secretaries, people who work with executives who are callous, who are mean, and what they do is to protect themselves. They make copies of documents just in case, because they know something's wrong, and they get fired. And when they get fired, they say, I was fired because I knew about this. This person was mean. They fired me. They put my family in jeopardy because I knew about this, and they wanted to silence me and take me out. That's how a lot of this happens. When people like this engineer, compared to the CEO, he's an assistant. I mean, he's not, this isn't his company. He discovered this. He took a certain position. The company knew it. They just made a different decision. It's really just that simple. That's where the litigation comes in, Santita.
And it needs to come in. I've got 1 minute for you, Anastasia Sanat, Attorney Sanat. Where do we go from here?
Yeah, I would think, I think when CK, I think that was a great point, because I immediately started thinking of that movie, Erin Brockovich, in which she had uncovered all these people who were getting sick and dying of cancer, and then what happened. It became a successful litigation because she decided to fight back. And I think in this situation, David Lockridge honestly is a hero, because he told the world this was not safe, it shouldn't go down, and this is the reason why. I hope and pray that everybody is found and they do not run out of air, or oxygen, I should say, and that they're able to survive this. But I really do think that in moving forward, we do need to protect people like David in the future, because if you come in there and you're hired to do a safety inspector's report, you give the report and they ignore you and put people's lives in danger, they should be held accountable with the passage of law. That's how I feel.
Well, I
thank you,
agree.
Santita, for having me.
Well, no, thank you. I mean, because when I saw this, when I saw that these are the questions that have been raised, not just questions, the concerns. He didn't have questions. He said, structurally, the integrity is not here. We could have a potentially catastrophic result by sending this submersible, which is not certified, by the way. There are 10 vessels of this sort. This is the only one. The Titan is the only one that has not been certified. When I found this out, I was outraged. I said, why are we going through this? This is horrible. And I can only imagine the loved ones, including the CEO's loved ones who are above ground. I'd be out of my mind with worry and grief. Because I heard someone an ABC reporter to whom this happened more than 20 years ago. He did not sound hopeful about them at all. He said, let me tell you what I experienced. And we were still, and the people who were running our trip, the engineers who ran our vessel, they were in touch with people above ground. He said, I could only imagine what they're going through. He said, they might be clanging on the walls. They might not be. If they're in the bottom of the ocean, for heaven's sake. You don't know if they're clanging up against the Titanic. We don't know. It's horrific. It's horrific and completely unnecessary. But this is what happens with Big Pharma, all these companies with all drugs. They are blocked from lawsuits, and that's a shame.
Well, Santita, let me just throw this out really quickly.
15 seconds.
Something really quickly. 15 seconds. The analogy is when you have someone who's hired to put a company in compliance with EEO guidelines, and they tell them you are out of compliance, and they get fired for that. Just think about that, because it doesn't just happen in these types of safety situations. It happens in an employment contract.
Absolutely.
With discrimination every day.
And you know what? I want you both to return to the show so we can talk about that, how you can protect whistleblowers. That is that's a story. That's a story, everybody. Let's talk about home ownership. When will home prices be affordable again? Well, you have an opportunity. We're going to be talking with David Hochberg. Are you struggling with home ownership? Do you want to be a homeowner? Do you think that being a renter is the way? Let's talk about it on the Santita Jackson Show. Back in just a few minutes. 773-763-9278. I'll see you tonight at Millennium Park, everybody. That's why the Ramsey Lewis tribute. Back in a minute. Thank you, ladies.
WCPT.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate being on Solar.
Here every night here on
WCPT AM 8.
Well, let me ask that
piece. Okay, wait a minute. Can you turn that down?
To the 60 Minutes piece.
Thank you, hon. Okay.
I was going to ask Attorney Sanita, are you going to be at the Rainbow Push Convention? I would really love to meet you in person.
She is absolutely brilliant, and she's my soror, so what can I tell you?
Okay, so that means, yes, I have to go.
We'll have an opportunity to meet. Yes.
Right. I would love,
you know what I would like to talk about at the convention? I'd like to talk about getting the Black Caucus to start supporting these immigration reforms. You know that, right?
Of course.
That would be great. Okay, let me just say, the Black Caucus doesn't support some of these immigration reforms?
Oh, they do, but there's not enough of them on the same page.
Well, you know what? Remember, we have to broaden out the conversation. You have to be very tactical about it. Because with migrants being brought into the United States and Black people feeling some kind of way about that, because Black people still have not gotten what we need, deserve,
reparations.
It's not just reparations, my 40 acres and my mule. Not even reparations.
Right. What was promised.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it's right.
When we're talking about political awareness and involvement at this time, when we're thinking about these power players, at some point, in order to really get that, we're going to start needing the Africans and Caribbeans of our same transatlantic slave trade to come in so that we have a voting bloc, because there's a system right now that's taking us out. And we need them to come in to give us the political strength that we currently don't have.
But the thing is, we know we do have the political strength, but we don't have is the awareness. Black people make the difference in all presidential elections and all elections. We are the margin of victory or loss. We have the power. What we also need Black immigrants to do is to come in and move into the Black community. You and I have had this discussion before. It's a both and. It's not a
yeah, we did, but I don't think they weren't welcomed, and I think that's what happened with Lori. She tried to let, like, some of the Haitians that came in. They said they weren't welcome, so they ended up coming like over here on the west side.
Well, I'll be honest with you. That's just not been my experience, but I respect and appreciate, because my mother's from that community in Florida, so I get it. I get it better than you think. But I'm saying it's a both and, because remember Newt Gingrich played the game on, the African immigrants and the Caribbean Blacks, you're so different and you're superior to African Americans, you have a stronger work ethic. All these things, when Black people in America hear this, they become angry. We've got to have, I told you, there's a lot of house cleaning that we need to do. I
told you I was ready to talk to all those ADOS people.
Well, it's a diasporic conversation. We need to have it. Right?
And it's front center in Chicago. So that's, hopefully we can frame the dialogue, the discussion at the conference surrounding that, because I think there is a way of reconciling. Because I can tell you, here in Atlanta on my other show, Santita, there are people who call in all the time when it comes to questions of immigration, because we have, probably, at least once a month and once a month I have a discussion surrounding immigration, some aspect of immigration. And there are a lot of African Americans that feel some kind of way.
Yeah.
And it's not because they don't feel they got their 40 acres and a mule, but they feel that they're not even getting basic things their community now. I think it's more that. It's more basic than reparations. Yeah. It's more like, how about education for us now? How about job security? How about health care? I mean, we're sitting here in Georgia where, and so that's the kind of thing, that's the discussion. So there's a way.
It's not even reparations. It's like, you keep lying to me.
You saw what the elected official in New York introduced into the New York State Senate in order to vote on, which was a whole committee in order to investigate all of these things, particularly in the state of New York. I hope that whatever Darling, I think that was her last name, Darling, I hope whatever she introduced in the New York State actually gets introduced in Congress, because I think there's so many things that are going on right now, especially with that governor in Florida trying to erase Black history and the impact of the slaves that were brought here that built this country, that they don't need to be talked about, and all the strides that are made by
Mr. Huckler's
here. Yes, and we have 2 minutes.
That just should be erased and not talked about.
Well, but New York is different, because New York is an immigrant town. When they did a survey of Black people, of how Black folks identified in New York about 30 years ago when I lived there, they had 26 categories. African Americans were 25th out of 26. So, Black folks who were from the Caribbean, who were from South and Central America, they identified with that. And the immigrant experience, we don't have that. So, I mean, and that's a discussion that I think it's a discussion that we can have. I think we need to have it first, and then you figure out how to have the discussion, a broader discussion. Does that make any sense?
Well,
everybody, I have to hold on, ladies. I have to move on.
Are you going to be there, CK?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll talk to you offline. Yeah, I'll talk to you offline.
Perfect. All right, thank you.
You all have the number. You have each other's numbers, right?
Yes, I'll talk to her offline.
Do that, and let me know how I can be helpful. Okay.
Okay. Wonderful. Okay. Thanks.
Have a good day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
David Hochberg, how are you?
A lot going on there, huh?
Oh, my conversations keep on going. How about that? You better
that was awesome.
My conversation, we keep it going and keep it lively. Okay.
Yes, you do.
So you're like,
amen.
What have I stepped into this morning, Lord? Well, that.
I heard,
back in 30.
Even going to breathe loudly during that conversation. That was something that. Yeah, that's interesting. So everybody's got an opinion, right?
No, not just opinion. We have experiences. And I think that if we start to appreciate each other's experiences, respect them, and consider them as much as we consider our own, we can move further along.
Stand by.
Okay, stand by.
That's the key, right?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Everybody's got a perspective. I respect that. Stand by.
Yep.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. Yes, we can change the world. We can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love. It's not too late. Gotta save the children. We can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. It is Thursday, June 22nd, 2023. I'm Santita Jackson, coming to you from WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Meet my morning stars on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel and the Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page. Morning stars, please like and share the show. Louis Chewy, Robert, Mark, Abraham down there in Venezuela, Carlos from Mexico. Hey, sweetie, how you doing? Sending you all so much love. Where are you in Mexico, Carlos? Let me know. And everybody from all around the world, just let us know. Venezuela, Brazil, all of you, just let us know where you are. Call us at 773-763-9278. Let's talk about home ownership. You know, out of all the people in the world, that there are, 8 billion plus people in the world, only 15% of the world are landowners. Did you know that? So really owning a home, the American dream, it has much more resonance than you even know. But many of us don't think that home ownership is something that's just way beyond us. We can barely cover rent. Let's talk with Team Hochberg, with David Hochberg about that. Let's talk about just all of these issues surrounding home ownership. Can you own a home? Should you own a home right now? When should you rent? When should you own? How do you build up your credit? All of that. Whatever questions you have about home ownership, I want you to call me right now at 773-763-9278. 773-763-9278. No, well, not me. Call David Hochberg because he's going to help you with this. So let's get to some of these headlines so we can get on with the rest of the show. We're still looking for the Titan, everybody. The search for a missing submersible, the Titan, with 5 people on board, including a father and son, continues as the remaining oxygen becomes a vital issue. This sub, known as Titan, begins each trip to explore the wreckage of the Titanic with an estimated 96 hours of life support. It's been missing since Sunday morning. So today is a very, very critical day. This is the day that they are expected to run out of oxygen. What's going to happen, everybody? They're hearing banging noises every 30 minutes. We are hoping and praying that they will make it out as we get information that that one of their top level executives expressed concern about the safety of this submersible years ago. This is a lawsuit that is 5 years old. He was fired from the company when he raised questions about what he saw were, as he put it, potentially catastrophic flaws in this machine. We'll just have to see what's going to happen once this painful moment is behind us. The House of Representatives voted Wednesday to censure Representative Adam Schiff, a key lawmaker in Democrats' congressional investigations into former President Donald Trump. The resolution accuses Schiff of misleading the American people while pursuing the congressional investigation into Russia and the Trump campaign as the then chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, and for actions that he took leading up to the former president's first impeachment. Indeed, he is a leading candidate for the U.S. Senate along with Barbara Lee, and California. We'll see how this will impact that run. Indian Prime Minister Modi, the leader of the world's most populous country, the largest democracy, will meet with President Joe Biden today during a state visit to Washington as part of a trip that is expected to further boost defense, trade, and technology ties and celebrate the warm bonds of family and friendship, as he puts it, that link the two countries. He was in New York yesterday, where he led celebrations for the International Day of Yoga at the United Nations. The Supreme Court, the Senate Judiciary Committee will consider a bill on Supreme Court ethics following a ProPublica report that Justice Samuel Alito did not disclose a luxury 2008 trip in which a private hedge fund billionaire flew him on a private jet. Now, mind you, this private hedge fund managers had cases that were before the court that were going to be seen, obviously, by Justice Alito. We're going to have to see how this all plays out. You've got to read that ProPublica report, everybody. And in Chicago, we're expecting a high of nearly 80 degrees, mostly sunny, 91 degrees in Minneapolis, St. Paul, 91 degrees. In Major League Baseball, the Twins 5, the Red Sox 4, the Rangers 6, the White Sox 3, the Cubs 8, the Pirates 3. In soccer, the Chicago Fire, well, they won over Portland 2-1. And so those are some of the headlines. If you are trying to become a homeowner, I think this segment is for you. Now, first of all, let me just check and see. David Hochberg, are you all right? We're hearing you make some noises in the background.
No, I'm sorry. I'm trying to move. I'm working a golf outing, a charity golf outing. I'm trying to move a 10-foot tent by myself. So, yeah, we're good.
I want you to know you're not sounding real well. Okay.
I didn't realize I would have muted myself.
Oh, my gosh.
I'm sorry.
No.
Sorry.
It's like, oh, my goodness. But look, let me get this out the way, because you know what? If you're a first-time home buyer, that is to say, you might have owned a home before, but if within the last 3 years, if you have not owned a home, this program that Team Hochberg can guide you through might be for you, everybody. Fannie Mae and Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have noticed a decline in first-time home buyers, and they've been disturbed by that. It was 26% last year, down from 34% the year before, and the numbers have been much higher in previous years. Well, they said, we've got to do something about this, because that goes to the stability of the economy. So they want to turn these numbers around. Now, mind you, this program is a temporary program, because once they raise these home interest rates, the program's going to go out the window. So you need to call Team Hochberg at 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID right away, so that you can take advantage of these substantially lower rates. You can also go to 56david.com, 56david.com. I think it's great to go to the website, but I think it's also really, really wonderful when you speak with a person, because you can tell them the particulars of your situation, and they can help to guide you through this, everybody. But let me tell you, if you're a first-time home buyer, if you have not owned a home within the past 3 years, you could be eligible for a program that could really, really change your life. If you have a household income, if the heads of a household earn $105,700 or less, and you've not owned a home within the past 3 years, you might be able to make it into this program. So you need to call Team Hochberg at 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID, or go to 56david.com and read through the program, everybody. Look, this is your opportunity to build generational wealth. Homeowners beget homeowners. If your parents are homeowners, more than likely you will be too, and on it goes. So think about that, everybody. Give it a try. This might work for you. Then if they raise these rates, well, this program is going to disappear. But don't let it disappear on you, everybody. It's a special offer. It can expire at any time. Don't let it expire on you. But if you have any questions about owning your home, about trying to rebuild your credit, trying to build credit, and maybe trying to help your child establish credit as they graduate from high school, go into the trades, or go to college, call Team Hochberg. It's never too early to start. Call them, everybody. And so I want you to call them at 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID. This special offer on this housing program, on this home ownership program, could expire at any time. So you need to go on and call them today so that you can find out if you're eligible, or if you're eligible for some other programs that they would know about. Okay, now that we've gotten David Hochberg's breathing together, I was worried about you. I was like, wait a minute, do I need to call like 911?
What is he doing?
No,
just call the ambulance.
Call the ambulance, because you were sounding like you needed a little help. But talk to us. There are, just bottom line, women, we're lagging behind men when it comes to home ownership. Black people lag behind whites when it comes to, people are living under the boot. Really are lagging behind in home ownership. And Forbes has this article that says, when will home prices be affordable again? That's the simple, that's the title of the article. Is it affordable? Is it even possible to think about owning a home today?
Well, here's what you have to. Is it affordable? It depends, right? Depends where you're at. Depends on the taxes. Depends on your purchase price. Depends on how much money you make. It also depends on what's your other alternative, right? If your other alternative is renting, then you got to compare and contrast. Hey, I could get into this home if I'm a veteran for no money down. I could get into this home if I'm below if I'm in the Community Reinvestment Act area. I could get in with a BMO Harris full closing cost credit and down payment assistance. So basically walk in with no money. If you don't qualify for those programs, if you're in a rural area, you could qualify for a USDA rural loan, which will finance 100% of the purchase price plus all the closing costs. And then if you don't qualify for any of those previously mentioned loans, you have FHA with 3.5% down, and Fannie and Freddie have 3% down. So that's the first thing our listeners have to address, right? Do you have the funds, or do you qualify for the funds for down payment assistance or a VA loan or some type of closing cost assistance? Okay, once you get over that, then you compare and contrast your rent and your current payment to what the mortgage payment would be with principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. If you're going to buy a condo, then you have to factor in an association dues, right? So it's different for everybody, Santita. Owning a home is not for everybody, right? That's why we have apartment complexes, okay? So back in the day, under President Bush and President Clinton, they pushed the lending guidelines down, and we went from 62, 63% home ownership in the United States to, I think, like 66, 67 with the subprime stuff, and it got a little out of balance, and we all know what happened in 07 and 08. So the sweet spot is 62 to 63% of Americans own homes. It's been proven that's the number. Now you have to decide, is home, if you want to be part of the 63%, right? Or do you want to be part of the 37% that rent or live with your family? And there's nothing wrong with that, right? We're not pushing anybody to buy a home. We're just trying to encourage your listeners to say, hey, if you're interested in buying a home, we will run the numbers for you. We will give you a complimentary consultation. If you qualify for the BMO Harris down payment assistance and closing cost credit, I will personally introduce you to a mortgage professional that works for BMO, and they will help you get a loan with BMO, not with me, right? I'm just out here trying to educate all of our listeners. And I totally forgot. Our listeners up in Minnesota also qualify for the BMO down payment assistance program if you're buying within a Community Reinvestment Act. And one other thing, that $105,700 number for income is for the Chicago metropolitan area, right? So so when we go to Minnesota, we have to check the local average median income for each of the different areas up in the Minnesota market. So if you're in Minnesota and you would like to know if you're within one of those areas to qualify on an income basis, I've got a link that I'll be more than happy to send to you. All you have to do free of charge, just send me an email, David at 56David, and then just put down average median income in the subject line, and I will send you a link when I get back to the office from working the charity golf outing I'm at today.
Oh, just say Santita Jackson.
First, our listeners,
just say Santita Jackson Show. Make it real easy. Make it real easy.
Santita Jackson Show. That's it.
Because they might not be able to remember all of that, but that they've spoken with you here, and because I want people to know that they have some options. I mean, because you sent me an article.
There are so many options.
Well, I mean, but you sent me an article, but you say housing I mean, housing starts are surging. I'd like to see some evidence of it in the Black and brown communities, but okay, I'll take it as a given. But in white communities, in affluent communities, more communities that are able to get community investment, you see the housing surges. You don't see them as much in Black and brown communities unless they're being gentrified, as they are now with the Obama Center being brought into Chicago. The Southeast side, Blacks are being purged from the community, and you're seeing a lot of new construction, a lot of renovation. For people who are in these areas, like if you are in an area that's been economically depressed, but they have some beautiful homes on all sides of town in Chicago. They're
gorgeous, yeah.
They're gorgeous on the north, south, and west sides. What can we do to get access to monies? Do we have? Are there funds? Are there ways for us to access monies that can help us to improve our homes and our neighborhoods?
Absolutely. Garfield Boulevard, right, in Chicago. Right, those houses on Garfield, the gray stones on Garfield Boulevard are gorgeous. Gorgeous. You could drop an elephant out of a plane on their final approach to Midway, and that elephant doesn't stand a chance if it lands on one of those houses, because those houses were built in the 1920s and early 1900s, just built solidly, right? You know exactly those houses I'm talking about. Those houses, unfortunately, have gone through a little bit of a downturn, and they need a little upkeep. And there are professional real estate professionals, contractors within the Black community who I've met. I sat with at the Illinois Land Bank in a meeting. I met four amazing builders that have the money, that have the resources. What don't they have? Buyers for those houses, right? So the thing, we get into a situation where the cart before the horse or the horse before the cart, right? I'm taking it from a ground up type of dynamic look at it. I want to get as many of the listeners within the Black and brown community who want to buy a house, who have no clue on what they have to do to buy a house. Now, they talk to their auntie or their uncle, and their uncle gave them horrible advice on what they have to do to establish credit, set aside money for an emergency fund. And I just want to give them the bare bones, what you have to do to survive, right, if you're going to buy a home. And then what we'll do is we'll take these qualified buyers to those four builders and those contractors who I know and I built relationships with, and say, hey, we've got qualified buyers of your homes. Now let's look at the 25% of the brownfields that Cook County is made up of here in the Chicago market, right? And let's go into those brownfields. Brownfields is a term for factories that left and nothing's been there. Okay, let's take those sheltered factories that have been bare and just left empty for the past 30, 40 years, and get these contractors in there and start flipping these places around. Or take some of the houses in the areas like we talked about, Garfield Boulevard, off of Garfield Boulevard, and put some money back into those houses and take these qualified homeowners now, home buyers, and get them financing to buy those houses. That's what it's all about. It's a ground up.
Well, my question is, what about working and working class people? And, people who are not upper middle class, people who are not upper income, are they eligible for these
Absolutely.
funds? Okay.
Absolutely. And the lower the income, the more you're eligible.
Really?
Okay, because it's based upon income. Yes. So when you get above $105,700 in Cook County, and listen, some people might think that's rich. You got a husband and a wife and a wife, you got two, whatever it is. You got two people living in a house making $55,000 a year. Okay, which is two managerial jobs, right? I'm just making a statement because I see it every day. It could be two truck drivers, right? Each of you making $55,000 combined, you're making 110. You're over the income limit. Okay, you've got two individuals making $30,000 a year. Boom. Okay, you qualify because you're at $60,000 a year. You're under that in Illinois, in the Chicagoland area, $105,700 limit. Right? So it all depends upon where you're located. Now, the $60,000 worth of income is not going to be able to afford, assuming that there's no debt, what the $110,000 combined income is going to be able to afford. But we're going to get them into a house that fits their needs, right? We're not going to sell them a 40-inch pair of pants for if they have a 32-inch waist. We're going to get them into something that meets their housing needs so they could survive and they understand. Here's the key. You have to understand the home buying process and the home ownership process, because if something happens, as you know, Santita, because you've owned homes and you've owned condos, if something goes wrong, you have an unexpected expense, you can't put duct tape on it. Okay? Well, you can, but then it's not a good way to fix things, right? So if you own a house and a furnace goes out or an air conditioner goes out, that's $6,000 to $8,000. Okay? If your roof needs to be replaced, depending upon the size of the house, it's $8,000 to $28,000, right? So you have to have that money set aside. Real estate taxes in Cook County, as we all know in Cook County, who own property here in Illinois, those continually go up every 3 years. You have to be ready for that, and somebody needs to educate you, hey, your county taxes are going to get reassessed on a triannual basis. What does that mean? Once every 3 years, the county is going to come through, and your taxes might go up, and you might have to set aside $100, $200, $300 extra a month to pay for the increase in the real estate taxes. So this is what we educate our listeners, your listeners, on, so they can be in the best position to succeed. And the consultation is complimentary. I would love to speak to more and more community groups, organizations, anybody out there. If you would like me to come out and have a credit empowerment talk, a home buying empowerment talk, whatever you guys want, I'll put together anything, any type of presentation that would meet your congregants or your organization's needs.
Well, one question very quickly. I've got a minute. Laura Bell said, I would like to one day own a home. With the rent going up, she wants to know if she could rent to own.
That's a good one. In some cities, you have to find the right seller who's willing to do that. So the answer is yes, but to find the right seller who's willing to do a rent to own is very difficult, especially in this market, Santita, because the real estate values are so high and the sellers can easily sell in this market. If it was a different market where it was tougher to sell and property values weren't increasing like they are, and there isn't a shortage of inventory like we're all facing right now, there's less of a motivation for the seller to do a rent to own type of situation, because they can put their home on the market in this market and sell it within 3 days, right? So yes, but it's more trickier in this market, more challenging.
Great
question. Great question.
Well, how can we reach you throughout the week?
Yep, very simple. You go to our website, the number 5, the number 6, david.com. You can send me an email, david@56david.com. In the subject line, put Santita Jackson Show, so I know exactly who you are, where you came from, and I can get right to you quickly. And make sure you put your phone number, because I got a lot of emails from your listeners last time, and I got a great email explaining their situation, but they forgot the phone number, so I couldn't get back to them right away, so I had to send them an email saying, hey, thanks for the email. I appreciate it. I'd love to help you. How do I reach you? Right? Because I like to have conversations instead of email. So please put your phone numbers in. And I'm on the golf course all day today working hole 10 in Barrington for a 9/11 remembrance. So I won't be there today, but I'll be checking my phone with my voicemail and my emails when the golfers aren't coming through. And I'm trying to get money out of them for the organization.
Well, amen to you.
Make a donation.
Can't wait to have you back next Thursday. Any and all questions you have about home ownership and about renting to own, leasing to own, reach out to David. Call 855-56-DAVID or 56david.com. That's right, everybody. Sending you so much love. Enjoy yourself today. Now you can go on and breathe heavily and move everything around the course.
Yeah, go finish moving the tent.
Oh, my
Thank
you. All right, everybody. Let's talk with Dr. Max Wolf. Is the Supreme Court for sale? It sure does seem so. Back in just a minute. Laura, reach out to David. Okay? Reach out to him. Call at 855-56-DAVID. Tell them that you want to get in touch with him and that you heard him on this show, because we want you, if you want to be a homeowner, if that makes sense for your budget, then, we want that for you. But if renting makes more sense for your budget, want that to work for you too. Okay? So please reach out to him at 855-56-DAVID, okay? Or go to 56david.com. So it would be David at 56david.com so that you can get your questions answered, okay? All right. But you know, it's gonna be all right. It'll be all right.
Hi, Ms. Jackson.
Yes.
We have Dr. Wolf on the line.
Okay, Dr. Wolf.
Good morning.
How are you? You sound so enthusiastic today.
Good morning.
Okay.
Better?
Thank you, Robin. Yes. Oh my gosh. How are you doing?
Not bad. How's everything there?
Oh boy. Things are good. Just got a long day. Oh my word. So I'm going to be running today. We've got a tribute to the great jazz musician. Who is it? Oh goodness. Ramsey Lewis tonight. I'm going to be singing there. So it's kind of my day kind of, you know, in addition to some other things that I need to get done, that's kind of got my day moving, but that's all right. Have you heard of this Lexercise machine? It keeps your legs moving. Lexercise. It keeps your legs moving at the desk.
I know that you like move under the desk. Yeah. I've worked with guys who have them. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you thought about getting one?
Yeah, treadmill desks.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty good at getting myself to do the exercise these days. So I do like an hour or two every day.
Really?
2 minutes.
It's my life over the last year or two. Yeah. I don't know. I never really got them. They were in the office. Like, so I've used it before, like little bike, little treadmill thing. The stand-up desk, the treadmill is pretty cool, but the good ones are like thousands of dollars. And I don't know. But the little exercise bike under there, yeah, it's probably better than nothing. Keeps you moving, I guess.
Yeah, it keeps my legs moving.
The thing they tell you to stand up and walk around every 40 minutes is more important than that.
Well, you know, now I just
can't sit still for too long.
I just get up and walk, you know, and I have a beautiful walkway right across the street from my building, and so I just get up and walk, you know, just walk.
You have an iPhone or one of those Oura.
Back in a minute.
Make sure that you're getting a certain number of steps and stuff too. I mean, that's a little bit crude of a measure, but it's not terrible because you're moving around.
You know what my body tells on me? My body tells on me now. I mean, absolutely.
Are you achy or something? Or
margin for error, inflammation, whatever it is, my body tells on me. When something's off, when I don't get enough protein, everything now hits me very, very quickly. You know.
Once you're over 40, which is my assumption regarding your approximate age, you do have to stretch to exercise, or you really will kind of hurt yourself, especially if you haven't done that kind of movement for a while. It's a new kind of movement. The stretching seems like, you know, busy people tend to sort of skip it, myself included, until I injured myself because I didn't listen to anyone. But I can tell you, having made the mistakes, like it is really important. And ideally, I think you should be doing this, you know, for a few minutes at least before you do your exercise and for a few minutes after, before you return to your, you know, everyday life.
I'm about to go take yoga.
Stand by.
Yeah, good idea.
Because I used to do yoga. Oh, I did it, you know, all through high school.
Change the world, change the world. Don't do the hot yoga. Change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am green.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. You know what time it is. It's Thursday, bottom of the hour, 7:30 Central Standard Time, 8:30 Eastern Standard Time, and 5:30 on the West Coast for all of Carol and Eric and everybody out there in LA. Hey everybody, let's talk with Dr. Max Wolf, you know, brilliant economist. But you know what? This is I'm so glad that you wanted to weigh in on this, the Supreme Court. The most business-friendly Supreme Court since World War II. It's the data that proves it. Indeed, it's really since they have been measuring the influences upon the court, since they have been measured, since it's been codified, this is the most business-friendly, the most corporatist Supreme Court in the history of the Supreme Court. And so I want to know what you think about that and how is that impacting how we live from day to day. So call me 773-763-9278. Why did you think that it was important for us to talk about the rise of the business of the Supreme Court? I mean, as a business entity, I mean, that is what they're into. I mean, this Alito story from ProPublica has got everybody wound up. And I'm like, I don't know why you're wound up. We're not just seeing all of the malfeasance and all of the, I guess, the misdeeds. Just how the court is not clean, right?
Yeah, but look, I think we have to be pretty careful here. There are people who are from the social critical class who grow up asking fundamental questions of our major institutions. Both of them can fit together comfortably in the back of your Toyota yourself. Then there's the majority of people who live in a society where there's strict punishment and an expectation that these institutions are better than you and above it all. And that's why they're able to make harsh dictatorial decisions that contour the conduct of your life. So if you're going to wear the robe and you're Samuel Alito or Clarence Thomas or whoever else on that court, and you're going to tell a 12-year-old rape victim that she can't have an abortion because you're that sure and you're that morally pure that you can judge that 12-year-old trauma victim, then you probably shouldn't be taking trips. Right? So there's this sort of...
taking trips with someone whose case is going to be heard by you, right?
Favorably, too. That's the best part. If you vote against them, you could probably get the trip, probably only once, which is the problem, right? So look, it's not surprising if you auction off your Congress and you auction off your White House and you auction off your pastors and you auction off your reverends and ministers and rabbis and imams, that you end up auctioning off, probably other people. But I mean, to me, the Supreme Court and the submersible story are perfectly the same story in a funny way, because I think we live in this funky age of extreme elite inaccountability. Right? I think the Trump presidency was kind of a dark comedy of elite unaccountability. And now we see it everywhere. So in other words, we live in a world where we believe in mortal accountability for a black motorist or a teenager, right? Mortal. We believe in life-transforming traumatic clarity and culpability for a teenage girl who's sexually assaulted or just gets pregnant through another means, right? But we don't have rules in place to make sure that the folks who make the rules follow them. Right? And it seems to be a sort of story that has a certain resonance because of its oft-repeated nature, right? And that is kind of the Supreme Court story, I think. It's the Trump story. It's a lot of these stories, right? Which is we don't seem to have much in the way of institutional accountability in place for elites. So whether that's Samuel Alito's exciting fishing trip with a billionaire hedge fund manager, or the strange interstices of Clarence Thomas's mom's rural real estate empire, or whatever else it is, right? Or whether or not it's okay for Donald Trump to take hundreds of boxes of classified documents and use them as a sort of next-gen wallpaper for a restaurant and a public golf club. Right? So these are things where you also saw somebody who was a career professional who brought stuff home during COVID and took 3 days to return it, go to prison for 9 months with a document that she was supposed to be working on. Right? And so you're starting to see sort of incendiary manifestations. And to me, as an economist, why it's interesting is because if the means we have are this different, then the social power we have quickly becomes this different too. And for some strange, interesting reason, in the United States, it's either celebrated or tolerated for one person to have 100,000 times as much money as someone else. In fact, if you say that seems like a lot, people tell you, does everyone have to be exactly even? And my response is always, no, but 5,000x should probably cover the spread. Right? It's like you can't serve one person a 14-foot mound of rice and another person make out with a kernel of rice. But they don't have to have the same amount, right? Because you know a lot of grayscale in between. The point being, once the society takes the market turn, where we want as much as possible to be determined by the market, and once the inequalities become just gargantuan, then they start to show up everywhere. So in other words, there are people who are wealthy enough that buying Supreme Court justices is sort of a minor issue, and it's a great return on investment. At the same time, there are a lot of people who are sweating their school lunch debt, and in some enlightened jurisdictions may have trouble getting their diplomas and graduating and going on to the next level of school because they and their family cannot pay for a lunch that was historically provided for free for a lot of people, but now it's not. And so we have, at the same time, people buying $100 million properties and Supreme Court justices and other people not graduating from middle school because they're stuck behind the cost of school lunch debt. And that does seem very disproportionate, right? So I think there's a sort of an allegory between the wealth inequities and also the substantial inequities in other areas, right? Social influence. Like, do you have the ability to graduate high school? Yes or no? Do you have the ability to buy a Supreme Court judge? Right? There's a lot of difference there.
I mean, what do we do? I mean, because why these stories are coming out about these Supreme Court justices, I don't know. They're coming out all at once. But all of this stuff has been going on for a long time. The reason they were able to have the investigation is because they had a body of malfeasance to investigate, right? So this has like been standard operating procedure. And what does it mean?
I'd be a little careful. I think the degree might be different.
Well, you know what? I guess
Right,
what I'm saying is this. I'm saying something else because, of course, I don't want to paint with such a broad brush that everybody on the Supreme Court, Ketanji Brown Jackson, has been very, very careful. You know, I know that absolute power corrupts absolutely. That's a truism. The fact is, these are the absolute powers. They are at the apex of this tricameral form of government. They are the legal arm. And it is very clear that in practice, Max, they feel that they are above the law. Clarence Thomas feels like he's above the law because they are investigating themselves. Come on, that's a joke. It's a joke. Now, I'm sure you have people on the court who will surprise you, thankfully, and they will, they want to behave ethically. They want to do this the right way. Then you see these other people going on trips with people whose cases you're going to see. Are you serious? I mean, every judge I know, they're like, you don't do that. They're very, very careful. But these guys are not. What is up with that?
But I think part of what happens is if people in those positions do things that at least appear to violate the core values of those positions and they're not accountable, there's a contagion factor, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're watching the other people do it and nothing happens to them, or if you bring it up, you get slammed and they get exonerated, because that's the sort of scandal media cycle where if you bring this up, they attack the messenger, right? So you can be much more harshly judged for bringing up these improprieties than various folks are judged for committing the improprieties. At that point, you're going to lose a lot of very decent people who figure, hey, I can fight this, lose, and get excoriated, or I can join this and get a summer house and an exciting trip. And a billionaire friend if I ever need to leave. And, the adulation of a group of people who think that they're cheering for two different teams at a sporting event. And so every tragedy that befalls the other team, every bad call, such as it is either justice or it's just a great opportunity to get another couple points on the board. And so that's that sort of intense tribal spectator sport feature of modern politics, right? Because a lot of the people who sort of brought up the improprieties around Clarence Thomas were treated to much more aggressive criticism than Clarence Thomas was. And I'm sure that won't end, and we'll probably see some rerun of something like that in the, with the Alito and whatever comes after it, right? Look, I also just think America's values have shifted, so there's a lot of confusion there, I think, for a lot of different people. And there's also just this basic idea that what does the money buy you? I'm not sure we figured that out. For a lot of people, it seems to potentially buy you that you don't have to play by the rules. So you can break them at will until you change them with your lobbying efforts. But that's still, most people who think that the inequalities are a good idea because they're motivational don't think that. So that has to be hidden, right? And then when it comes out, we tend to have these increasingly small but intense, short-lived moral outrages, after which the same people who created the circumstance make sure there's no enduring change to the legal structure so that privilege remains, right? But it is an age of elite inaccountability and extreme accountability for the middle and lower classes. And that just creates all kinds of issues and tensions.
So where do we go from here? I mean, what does it mean to have a Supreme Court that it is a matter of public record that they're the most business friendly? Where does that leave the average American?
I mean, I think these guys are partisan cultural warriors. So I think part of how the Supreme Court has done well when it's done well is to sort of be where the public is going by sentiment, and to be careful to have some kind of a standard that's generally agreed and measurable, and then to be measured against that standard, right? And the problem that you have now is you have a Supreme Court like a Republican primary system here. So you have a very partisan process of putting people on the court. I mean, there's one more Republican than there should be on the court because of a political partisan meddling operation to block an appointment, right? And people have a tendency to kind of forget that, but that is the law. In a breach of tradition, which had no basis in constitutional law, the Republican Party blocked a sitting president on some crazy ground from appointing a Supreme Court justice. So the Supreme Court justice appointment process has long been deeply partisan and divisive. And it looks like, particularly with some of the appointments, like Kavanaugh or something, you had a very partisan process produce a fairly partisan series of comments from someone, right? And again, I don't know anything that the public doesn't know, but there's an accountability issue here. So if you were trying to become the principal of a high school in Chicago or New York, and you have the allegations against you that Mr. Kavanaugh does, you would not be the principal of that high school. If you were a clerk for one of these judges, and anything like what came out around him, true or not, came out about you, that'd be the end of any conversation of you being a clerk, probably for anyone, right? So if the junior intern is held to a higher standard than the appointment for life judge, we just have reached a point of elite entitlement, right? Or an elite accountability that is somewhat staggering and marching in lockstep with the inequities, right? Where we do have a few individuals who have more money than the poorest 100 million Americans. To have more money than 100 million fellow citizens is sort of unusual, right? So you end up with these sort of circumstances that are kind of wild. Or if you think of the average person spending money that they can't afford to buy lottery tickets and scratch tickets, they're hoping to win a pre-tax sum less than the passive interest income that very wealthy people get every single day for simply being alive. Or if they die, their estate continues to collect. So the inequities have blown out, right?
Yeah.
And I think we're already starting to see those inequities make the democratic process restricted and difficult.
So my question is, when you have a Supreme Court that appears to be for sale, what does that say to an atmosphere in which people feel that they can storm the government? Okay. I mean, because January 6th came from a whole lot of different places, Max. It's not, Trump is a vehicle. Sure. He is not the reason. He didn't cause this. He is a vehicle. He's a vehicle. I mean, and people have been angry since 2008 when they lost all this money. They were angry in 2000 when the housing community collapsed. There is more and more Americans feel like our aspirations are beyond our grasp now. You know, I'm going to rant. I can't even think about owning. And then when I look at the Supreme Court, when I look at the over-incarceration of Black and brown people, and Black people in particular, when I look at, a woman who's finds herself in, she's having a miscarriage, she can't take mifepristone because they won't give it to her lest the doctors get charged with murder. And then when I see the Supreme Court behaving like this, what do you expect Americans to do?
I think we see what they're going to do. They're going to lose faith in their institutions and their society, attempt to take matters into their own hands, and begin to live with and expect a higher and higher level of instability and dysfunction. Right? We'll begin to normalize, just like we've normalized our spree shootings, which are now running at several per diem, with over 300, and we're at 300 days a year. Mm-hmm. Right? And so, unlike every other country, when they very rarely have one of these and everything in the news cycles about that for weeks, we don't even get
all these into the news cycle. There's a body count game, a sort of macabre body count game, and if it's not little kids or enough people or a famous place, it probably just passes into the trauma record without much acknowledgement, right? Or if we have Supreme Court justices doing stuff that, again, who knows, but doesn't look good, to say the least, right? And look, if we also have a Supreme Court that's partisan, I also think we should keep in mind, I don't think there's any evidence that the average American has moved as far to the right as our brothers and sisters in the Republican Party here, right? So, like, there's now a sort of requirement in the primary Republican Party to say that you supported the treasonous uprising. Or that didn't happen. I don't know which one's more troubling. I leave that to the mental health care community. But they're both tricky, right, from a historical perspective. And even in the old days, as in 10 years ago, if one of these stories broke, people would say, give the guy a chance, let's see all the evidence. Always a good point. And other people would say, even the possibility this happened makes this person illegitimate. A good point, maybe aggressive, right? We don't see that debate. We see whatever he did is fine because he did it, which is ultimately Trump's defense too, versus he's a piece of crap anyway, and I don't like him, so now I have the evidence to get rid of him. And very carefully, neither side there is focused on assuring the public of the trustworthiness of these individuals or these institutions. And to me, one of the lessons of history apparently skipped by our elite because it's been too stable here for too long is if the public loses faith in the institutions, your rule becomes barbaric and is exposed because you're not the chosen one. You're not the voice of God or the fist of God or the chosen one. You're not better than other people. You just have more crap and don't know how to share. And when people are hurting, that's not very inspirational. Like, hey, starve here in the basement because that guy has more crap than you. That's not an inspirational story. And it will not keep people with empty bellies and crying kids from doing the desperate things that those moments bring to the fore of everyone's mind.
So where do we go from here? Because increasingly Americans are not trusting. They're not mistrustful. They're distrustful of our institutions. And then we see reports like these, and we should have them. The reports should come out. Many people are saying, okay, see, I told you. I mean, what now?
But you see the attacks on the institutions too, right? Like you see a group of people in American politics who decide they don't want the press. The press is evil. Okay, the press is there to hold accountability. Whatever its problems and imperfections and shortfalls, it's one of the few institutions that's trying to keep elites accountable. We can argue how good it is, but that's a separate issue. Same with the FBI. Lots of historical problems there, but we now see people turning on the FBI. What these processes are, turn on the mainstream media, turn on the FBI, turn on the independent counsels. That is saying, how dare you attempt to hold me accountable? How dare you judge the king? Right? And that is that's totalitarianism, right? Where you follow me because I'm in charge, and if you don't toe the line exactly right, you will be punished. Your job is to follow me. Your job is to idolize me, right? I think in the Christian tradition, that's often called idolatry also, right? And it hasn't always been seen as a great trait. And true in other traditions as well, right? So the point being that is the opposite of a democratic process. That is the opposite of transparency. It is the opposite of accountability. And we still do live in a country, I think, unfortunately, where we'll have a debate about how a young black motorist moved his hand if he gets shot, but we will not have a debate about what it looks like to go on a junket with a billionaire whose case you're hearing. Right? So I just feel like maybe we should just ask the harder questions. I'm always a fan of this. Do we think that if you're rich enough, there really are no rules? Right? And I'll give you another area that I think is about elite accountability. I think this obsessional conversation, without anything other than worse, about protecting kids from sexual predation, I think that's about this stuff too. Because I think if you know the history of this stuff, wealthy people doing things that are inappropriate with poor people's kids is often a function of income inequality as well. Because when people are unaccountable, they get a taste for the edgy stuff. Again, am I saying that wealthy people are molesting kids? No. Do I think only wealthy people molest kids? No. Do I think most very wealthy people molest kids? Absolutely not. But I think because we can't have the discussion we should have about how much privilege should a wealthy person be able to buy in a society where almost everything is for sale? Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a conversation we should have, because if we're going to make that decision that we are for sale, we should at least go into it eyes wide open. And we should skip all this moral reprobation among other people making their mistakes if we're doing the same thing.
Max, it feels
I'd
like
be pretty
that's what
angry
we're
if I was
doing.
a prostitute. I'd be angry if I was a prostitute in Washington, D.C. If I got the same job as the guys in the Supreme Court, why do I need a lawyer when I get caught at work? That just seems unfair. At least I'm honest. I also think they should make everyone in the Supreme Court, male and female, wear revealing clothing and high heels.
Well, let me tell you something, everybody.
Yeah.
And you see this, show you how
Nobody wants to
crazy.
see that.
Show you how crazy this is. I mean, there was a time when prostitution in Washington, D.C. was flagrant. Flagrant. I mean, they on 14th Street, you knew that's where the prostitutes were. They were staying right there. And you were like, I had never seen anything like it in my life. But it really is sadly kind of emblematic of DC. And we've got a lot of cleaning up to do. I think what makes me hopeful about this time, Dr. Wolf, in this final minute that belongs to you, is that a lot of things that people suspected or actually wink, nod, knew was going on, now you're seeing it. And there's an opportunity. I think you're right to question the FBI. They've done a lot of things historically that have been awful, and they continue to do them. But now you have an opportunity to change things and put them on the right track. Put them on the right track. And with the Supreme Court.
And it's so bad now.
Yeah.
It's funny, right? A river runs through it. The story of my legal theory by Samuel Alito. Fly fishing and legislative clarity. Yeah, I mean, it's not funny enough. Obviously, I don't know the details. I don't want to cast too much in the way of aspersions, and it could be a series of unfortunate coincidences or whatever. But yeah, it just seems sort of like almost comically bad.
Oh my God.
I would say something else which will be upsetting to some people, but I feel like it's this moment, right? It's the new emperor moment that we have socially, right? Where something becomes so obvious that you either deny it and engage in weird, like, confusing, muddying the waters, pretending it's complex. You're like, whoa. Right? I feel like that was always the Donald Trump story. You're like, holy crap, that's the candidate. Or you're like, this guy's a secret genius and he's talking to me and he's a secret warrior freeing child sex slaves or whatever it is, right? But like, yeah, I mean, just sort of whoa, right? I think you sort of see that around some of these other stories too. And again, I don't know all the details. You don't want to be unfair and all the rest, but at least optically looks pretty bad.
Yeah. And the good thing is, as bad as it looks, it can look that good. But we, as citizens in a republic, we're not subjects in a monarchy. We're citizens of a republic that has democratic aspirations. We can change things. The government exists because we get consent to do so. Get involved, everybody. Don't be a spectator. Get involved. Dr. Maxwell, sending you much love. How can we get in touch with you through the week and follow you?
I don't know. I guess.
What is your Twitter handle, Max?
Oh yeah, my name. So just very creative and very great guy.
Max F. Wolf.
Yeah, at Max F. Wolf. The thing that might be confusing to people is that there's 2 F's and no E. So it's not spelled like the animal or the traditional American spellings. My parents were of a European extraction. So it's 2 F's, no E.
It's all good. Sending you much love. Hey, thank you. Keep you for a great show. Blessings. See you tonight in Millennium Park. Love you.